far the evidence we've heard is quite clear that it was a very peaceful demonstration. The only incidents that were pointed to were incidents of the police having some problems.
What do you expect him to take? Yeah, he's a homophobe and a transphobe. Actually, he makes me of himself.
And the hostility is waning, but the intensity of the hostility for those that remain is increasing. And so there are fewer crazies, but they're more crazy.
Look at that, Tamara.
Thank you.
Trial.
Good morning. How are you feeling today? How did you feel the day went by? No comment.
Yes.
Oh.
Sorry. Jesus. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I need someone behind
No,
us.
sorry, I tried to give you that.
I'm not going to do it.
Mr. Greenspan, what do you expect him today in court? Excuse me, guys.
Chris, people say hello from Vancouver and other places.
Fantastically done.
I will. Terry Simpson too.
Fantastically done.
Robert Krejcik for Rebel News here in Ottawa, Ontario, just outside the Ottawa Courthouse at the conclusion of the second day of the trial for Tamara Lich and Chris Barber. The major takeaway from today is that the prosecution's primary witness, an inspector with the Ottawa Police Service who was basically in charge of running logistical responses from the OPS towards the Freedom Convoy, stated on record that his discretion to negotiate with the Freedom Convoy in order to, as he put it, reduce their footprint and therefore reduce possible negative impacts on people living in Ottawa in terms of congestion and noise, was subverted by his superiors. He specifically stated that he was given a directive that not 1 inch should be conceded to the protesters. That included any negotiation offer, which would include a sort of consolidation, concentration of their presence to reduce the scope and scale of geographical impact. Furthermore, he said that that restriction on his ability, his discretion to negotiate, stretched resources of the Ottawa Police Services to a point where it could undermine and compromise public safety specifically. The more concentrated, the more together the Freedom Convoy could have been, the more easy it would have been to engage in public safety management on the part of law enforcement. Lastly, the second half of the day was primarily dedicated to the defense counsel's cross-examination of this witness, in which they got this police officer to confirm in his testimony that demonstrators were never violent towards police officers, that demonstrators always kept emergency lanes open on the roads upon which they were parked, with the small exception of a slate of Wellington in front of Parliament Hill, and that they were open, the demonstrators were open to ongoing negotiations and coordination with law enforcement. And the purpose of that line of questioning was to directly undermine the specific claim made by the Crown, the prosecution, in the opening statement, in which the demonstration was described by the Crown as anything but peaceful. We were fortunate enough to intercept Lawrence Greenspan, the defense counsel lawyer for Tamara Lich, as he was exiting the courtroom. We also got a chance to speak with the support of Tamara Lich. But before we get there, we want you to go to tamaratrial.com and contribute to our operational costs so we can continue to deliver this news to you that you cannot get anywhere else. Also, for those of you that are willing and able to assist Tamara Lich's fundraising to fuel for defense counsel, please go to helptamara.com.
Try a little bit harder. Yeah, he's a homophobe and a transphobe. Actually, he makes me of himself. Hey, do you remember when you made the video talking about scalping Calgary mayor-elect?
Takes your time to talk. We need to talk between Canadians.
You made a video at a bonfire talking about scalping. Don't touch me.
No, excuse me. You touch me with your bike.
You touch me.
Oh,
You've been touching
you
me
have
this
a
whole
view.
time.
Oh, sorry.
Sir, are you a resident of Ottawa?
Absolutely.
And what do you?
I'm working.
What do you think about this lady heckling Chris Barber?
It's terrible, man. It's terrible. It's harassment. Don't harass a hero. Don't.
Yeah, we're anti-trans.
It's
And
lies.
anti-queer.
You need love.
Do you remember that?
You need love.
What do you think of her?
What's the protest?
The convoy?
What convoy?
Freedom Convoy.
That's lives at risk.
You don't need that. We are all Canadians. We need to talk.
Why are we're all Canadians, then why did he did what he
He's
did
not
to us?
Canadian.
Did you not see he's not Canadian?
You are a human
He's not
being.
Canadian?
You are also a human being.
He's not Canadian.
You are also Canadian.
Bye, Chris.
We can.
You still
talk
have an
together.
apology.
Some of the questions that were asked of this witness, Lucas,
Yeah.
he said on record that he agreed with some of your statements that no violence was directed towards police officers,
Right.
that the demonstrators coordinated with law enforcement, and that an emergency lane was remained open on virtually every road with the exception of a segment of Wellington adjacent to Parliament. So I'm wondering, was the objective of that line of questioning from you and the other defense counsel intended to undermine the claim that the demonstration was anything but peaceful in the words of the Crown?
Well, I don't think that there's really been any suggestion otherwise that the demonstration was anything but peaceful. I think it's, so far, the evidence we've heard is quite clear that it was a very peaceful demonstration. The only incidents that were pointed to were incidents of the police having some problems.
I'm just wondering what impact you think it might have on the trial that he himself stated that his higher-ups subverted his own discretion in terms of negotiating with the protesters to, as he put it, reduce the footprint and reduce the possible negative impact on residents in engaging in negotiation.
Well, a steak dinner to anybody who can repeat that question.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I think his evidence was quite clear that they were more than interested, that they were trying to reduce the footprint, but they were hamstrung from doing that because the word that they got from the chief, I don't think there's any question about it, that it came from the chief, not 1 inch. Don't give 1 inch. Don't move 1 inch. Don't let them move 1 inch.
Do you think that exacerbated the impact of the demonstration in terms of logistical impacts on citizens?
You had the demonstrators were trying to work with the PLTs to try and reduce the footprint, to try and reduce the impact on the citizens and the businesses in the core. And you had, at the time, a police chief that had told those PLTs through their supervisors, don't give an inch, not 1 inch. So I mean, you know, it'd be up to her honor to decide, you know, what the impact was. But certainly the intentions and the efforts of the protesters is quite clear, according to the evidence of the inspector.
Well, I will say that first off, I would tell people to be reassured that our system, it looks like it's not 100% broken. And we've got a lot of bad corruption and a lot of damage in our institutions. But in just the last 2 days, we've seen some hopeful moments of fairness. You know, we're so used to hostility that when someone is, they don't have to be necessarily for us, but when you encounter someone who's not against us actively, that is progress. And I think that we've seen that in the last 2 days. So I'm hopeful. I've been outside. I've only heard this secondhand from people who come out and report on it. But from my understanding, the judge has been attentive and fair and has shown concern for the other side and fairness in general, and shown these things kind of overtly. And this is very good news. You know, we are a group of people that are very distrustful of the system and of the government and of authority figures in general, and for good reason. And so to get any kind of a fair shake is a good thing, and we certainly feel that. And the people out on the street, you know, we are surrounded by so much irrationality that on the street, the way we judge it is that we're getting much less hostility than we ever have in the past. We're on Wellington Street every day. We've been there almost 600 days straight, and the hostility is waning, but the intensity of the hostility for those that remain is increasing. And so there are fewer crazies, but they're more crazy.
All right. There's our mom first. Our mom came up first. We want to say the most beautiful thank you. Thank you for everything you did. Thank you to put your life on the line for us. You're one of the greatest women I ever met in my life. Thank you, Tamara. We're holding the line. We are here. We don't quit. We don't go away. Thank you for everything you did.
If you value our independent, high-quality journalism, and I know that you do, please support our operations. We can't do this for free. Go to tamaratrial.com.